At 5:15 in the morning, the wind outside the dormitory building was tearing at the branches, producing a mournful howling sound. I woke suddenly from a cold nightmare, my whole body drenched in sweat. The pain in my neck felt like being pierced by an ice blade but hadn't fully subsided. Yet the scene before me was incredibly clear: the cramped four-person dorm room, the air filled with a mingled scent of expensive perfume, Sarah's even breathing coming from the bed next door, Emma's phone screen still flickering faintly on the lower bunk, and in the dirty clothes basket near the door, the down jacket I had just dried and used as a footrest yesterday was stuffed inside. I clenched my fist hard, the warmth of real flesh spreading through my palm. I have been reborn. Reborn 6 hours before the so-called strongest blizzard hitting the campus of this century. In the previous life, on this very day, the temperature plummeted by 30 degrees, and the entire city was frozen. The central heating system in the dormitory building stopped functioning due to aging-in faults, and only our premium suite had an independent high-power electric heating account. Back then I acted with good intentions, not only paying out of pocket to cover the entire winter's heating bill, but also taking meticulous care of these 3 pampered roommates. But what did I get in return? When the blizzard completely cut off the roads and supplies were scarce, they stole my high-end down jacket and all high-calorie foods, and even in order to seize the only heater outlet left, they conspired to push me, who had a high fever, onto the balcony without heating and locked the balcony door from the outside. I froze to death in the blizzard at -20 degrees while they wore my clothes, held my card, and flaunted deep sisterhood in a warm room on social media. The despair of blood clotting little by little and organs freezing and cracking open, I will never forget for the rest of my life. I turned over in bed and did not make a sound. Barefoot, I stepped onto the floor, and the cold touch sharpened my mind unusually. I gave them no chance to detect me, quickly pulled open the drawer, and took out all my IDs, bank cards, passport, and all the core academic documents. The first thing is to deal with that deadly heating account. This dormitory's heating is independently bound, because when I lived here last time, the 3 of them found it troublesome and refused to prepay a deposit. I used my own personal information to open and bind the sole debit card for payments. I opened my phone and logged into the campus energy management system with practiced ease. Last time I had prepaid a full $5,000 for heating, enough to last the entire winter. I had no hesitation at all and directly clicked cancel account and refund balance immediately. System pop-up warning. Please note, logging out this account will cause the corresponding dormitory power and heating to be cut off immediately, and during this extreme cold weather alert period, reactivating the account requires manual review, which is expected to take 72 hours. Do you confirm? Confirmed. I sneered, entered my payment password. A refund success notification popped up on the phone screen, and more than $4,800 instantly credit back to my private account. At the same time, the green indicator light bound to the dormitory heating control panel gave a pop and went out entirely. The wind in the corridor seemed to grow louder, but I didn't slow my pace. I pulled out the 2 large suitcases I had prepared long ago from under the bed and began a sweep for supplies. I only took what belonged to me: the expensive high-fidelity outdoor gear, 2 cases of high-calorie emergency compressed biscuits, 3 thermos full of high-purity hot water, and all my personal computers and hard drives. As for the luxuries and snacks they 3 left in the public area, I didn't even glance at them. In the last life they smeared me as a thief. This life, I will not give them the slightest excuse to dirty my name. All packed up. It was just past 6. The other 3 in the dormitory were still sleeping soundly, even snoring softly from last night's all-night party. Sarah was mumbling in her sleep about buying the latest designer bag. Emma was turning over. Chloe had her feet sticking out from under the covers. I walked to the door, glancing back at the room that bore the endless humiliation and pain of my past life. A faint chill began to seep into the air. Without the high-power heating panel to sustain it, this dormitory, located at the top floor corner, would drop in temperature at a terrifying speed. I pulled my suitcase and walked out of the dorm, gently closing the door and locking it from the outside with the key, a necessary measure to prevent them from prying open my personal lock after I left. Then I headed straight to the dormitory management office downstairs. The dormitory administrator was dozily sleepy, and she looked quite surprised to see me pulling 2 huge suitcases. I took out the dormitory withdrawal application and the self-lease filing forms that I had printed long ago, both of which bore the electronic seal from the Office of Academic Affairs that I had prepared last night. Auntie, I'm applying for checkout today. All personal procedures have been completed. My voice was calm and steady. In addition, the heating account under my name has been officially cancelled. From now on, any heating charges, equipment maintenance, and any potential future electricity misuse issues at Dormitory 302 have nothing to do with me personally. Please sign and stamp on the registration book. Auntie was taken aback for a moment, looked at the dark sky and the raging wind outside, and hesitated. This big blizzard is coming soon. Are you leaving now and moving out? And you turned off the heating, what about your 3 roommates? That's their own business. My tone was cold, and I handed the withdrawal confirmation form to her. Each of them has independent energy account application rights. In the previous life, no. In the past 3 years I have fulfilled my obligation. Aunt, please stamp it. I'm pressed for time. Auntie saw my attitude was decisive, and when she also noticed that the procedures were legitimate and compliant, she stopped speaking and slapped the red seal down with a bang. The moment I obtained the stamped acknowledgement letter, I completely severed all legal and administrative ties with this dormitory. I dragged my suitcase and stepped out of the dormitory building. The fierce cold wind battered my face, and the knife-like pain did not deter me. Instead, it made the blood in my veins boil all over. The campus loudspeakers began replaying warnings of extreme cold and blizzards, urging all students to stay in their dormitories and not go outside. And I, moving against the sparse flow of people, walked step by step toward the deluxe hotel high-rise suite outside campus that I had already reserved in advance, with independent heating and a dual-power backup system. In the luxurious suite on the 22nd floor of the hotel, the heating was blasting, and the ground-to-ceiling windows showed only a white expanse outside. The blizzard was more ferocious than I expected, with the wind raging across heaven and earth, completely enveloping the entire campus in a biting white glare. I stood in the warm room, holding a cup of freshly brewed hot cocoa, quietly scrolling through my phone. At 8 in the morning, the blizzard officially broke out. The central heating in the dormitory building faulted and stopped as scheduled, and the high-power electric heating panel in Dorm 302 had, due to a lack of funds in my account, completely become a cold decorative piece. In the WhatsApp group 302 Pretty Girl Castle, the calm was finally broken. Sarah sent a voice message, her voice carrying the sleepy, coquettish tones and a hint of dissatisfaction. At Lisa, why is it so cold in the dorm? Why is the heating panel showing gray and not connected to the net? Did you forget to renew the fee? Hurry up and add some money on your phone. I'm freezing to death. Following is Emma's reply. Exactly, Lisa. I woke up this morning and went to the bathroom, and I'm freezing all over. Aren't you the most careful usually? Hurry up and top up the gas and turn on the heater. I still have to change clothes and do my makeup later. Chloe chimed in as well. At Lisa, reply quickly. Also bring the deliveries from the hallway inside for me. I'm too lazy to move. Looking at these 3 utterly presumptuous, superior messages, I sneered. In my previous life, whenever I saw messages like this, I would instantly scurry around like a servant, afraid of upsetting them. This time, I simply took a slow sip of hot cocoa, then posted a photo in the group. That was the notice of leaving dormitory with the red stamp I got this morning from the dorm supervisor, as well as the campus energy systems account cancellation and refund voucher. The group chat fell completely silent for a full 3 minutes. Then Sarah's voice almost screamed as she blurted out, Lisa, what do you mean? You're leaving the dorm? On what grounds are you canceling the heating account? Do you know there's a blizzard outside? If you turn off the heating, how are we going to live? Emma also got angry. Lisa, are you crazy? You're refunding all the prepaid money? What are we supposed to do then? Please reactivate it again immediately. We'll pay you back later. Slowly calculating? I press the voice key. The voice is calm as a block of ice. In the past 3 years, which time has every dormitory heating bill, electricity bill, and water bill not been fronted by me? Which time has your promised equal split been fulfilled? Sarah, last month you even told me that once your scholarship came in you'd repay me $2,000, but you used it to buy a bag. Emma, the internet fee you owe me has been deducted for half a year already. I continued typing the reply. I have completely cancelled the account. According to the school rules, reopening during extreme cold weather alert requires 72 hours of manual review. You figure it out yourselves during these 3 days. After sending this sentence, I directly set the group chat to do not disturb. Within less than 5 minutes, Sarah's call came through directly. I pressed the call, answer and record keys. Lisa, don't pretend to be all high and mighty here. Sarah roared hysterically on the other end of the line, her voice already carrying an undeniable chill and anger. You think you can just move out and walk away with a smug face? The heating account is under your name. You suddenly cancel it means you're deliberately harming us. Right now my dorm is only above freezing, at 5 degrees. Go back and reapply to open the account. Leave your high-powered electric heater for us. Otherwise I'll go find the supervisor and report you for abandoning your roommates. Go ahead, and have the supervisor take a look at the bills you owe me. I spoke softly, yet every word pierced like a dagger. Sarah, Article 14 of the school's energy management regulations is very clear. The dorm heating account is personally bound by voluntary agreement, not a public mandatory facility. As the account holder, I have the right to terminate the service at any time. As for your cold, aren't you the heating fee administrator anyway? Hearing this, Sarah on the other end of the line clearly faltered for a moment. In a previous life, the three of them privately ran a dorm fund, forcing everyone to contribute money monthly, with Sarah managing it to pay for daily expenses. But in reality, all of that money was used by Sarah to subsidize her own extravagant consumption, while all large expenditures were paid out of my pocket. What are you talking nonsense? Sarah's voice started to tremble. Last month, Emma and Chloe each transferred $800 to you as winter heating reserve funds, right? I casually dropped a bombshell. They thought the money was for you to hold. As long as I top up, you would transfer the money to me. But actually, that money you spent 3 days ago on the latest scarf at a luxury brand boutique. Sarah, do you want me to send your spending records to both of them? The line suddenly erupted with a strange loud noise, and faintly one could hear Emma and Chloe's shocked questions. Sarah? Is what she said true? What happened to the money we gave you last week? Don't listen to her nonsense. Lisa, you're sowing discord between us. Sarah shouted and hung up the phone. I looked at the phone screen, a smile curling at the corner of my mouth. This is only the beginning. Without the free heating, without the ATM that exploited them, when the crisis of survival and the betrayal of interests arrive at the same time, this originally seemingly impregnable beautiful girl castle will instantly become the arena where they are torn apart. I sat on the sofa with a hot chocolate, casually opening the private wireless surveillance footage that had been installed in advance in the dormitory hallways and public areas through a compliant application. On the monitor, the door to dormitory 302 was slammed shut, but the hallway still carried the tense, noisy commotion from inside. The wind and snow outside were growing harsher, howling as they battered the glass. The tearing sounds from inside the dormitory could be heard through the door form into the corridor. Through the monitoring interface I set up, I could clearly see that a thick layer of frost had already formed on the window of dormitory 302. Without my high-power heating panel, the room in the corner of the top floor was cooling at a terrifying linear rate. By noon, the temperature in the room had dropped to below zero. Sarah, Emma, and Chloe, wrapped in thick quilts, curled up on their beds, shivering violently. The quarrel that had erupted earlier over heating costs being embezzled had been suppressed by the extreme cold. Rather than settling accounts with Sarah, their most urgent need now was to stay warm. In the surveillance footage, Sarah shakily dragged a huge black cardboard box from the bottom of the wardrobe. That is an ultra-high-power industrial-grade mini-solar heater, with a power output of up to 3 kilowatts. This is the obsolete equipment they privately bought from the second-hand market earlier to save money. Extremely dangerous, with no overload protection measures whatsoever. In the previous life, this electric heater had always been kept hidden in the wardrobe by them. Because of the high-powered heating I advanced the money for, this thing never saw use. But in this life, in the desperate situation without heating, it became their only lifeline. Hurry! Plug it in! Emma urged tremulously. What school rules? It's better to freeze to death later. Chloe hesitated. This thing is too powerful. And the coils are all exposed. If the dorm supervisor finds out, who cares about that? Sarah's teeth chattered as she plugged in the power source. The whole building is about to freeze into an icebox. Who would come to inspect now? Just start burning it. As the red glow from the little sun electric heater spread, the three let out moans of renewed life, rushing to crowd around the heater. However, they had no idea that as early as 6 this morning, when I completed the checkout procedures, I had already submitted a detailed whistleblowing letter, an anonymous report titled on the violation of hiding and using ultra-high-power appliances in room 302 to the school's fire safety office and dormitory management center. The letter not only attached the exact model and hiding location of the heater, but also emphasized that the device posed a serious fire hazard and could endanger the electrical safety of the entire building. Just as they were soaking in a brief warmth and even starting to take photos and post complaints on social media that I am cruel and heartless, a heavy knock on the dormitory door suddenly shattered the quiet. Boom! 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 Open the door! Fire safety inspection. The stern voice of the dormitory aunt together with the questioning of the campus safety office officers echoed through the corridor. The three in the dormitory panicked instantly. Sarah fumbled to unplug the power, trying to shove the red-hot electric heater back into the wardrobe, but her hands were numb with cold, and she accidentally fell to the floor, instead knocking the heater, which let out a piercing whine. The door was pushed open directly with a spare key by the night warden. Several security officers in uniforms and the nannies from the dormitory filed in one after another, and they immediately saw in the center of the room a high-temperature emitting heater that had even scorched the surrounding carpet slightly. During the extreme cold weather warning, it is strictly forbidden to use any high-power heating equipment that has not been reported. The head of the safety office, with a grave expression, immediately took out the law enforcement recorder to document the entire process. This industrial-grade heater is very likely to cause a building blackout or even a fire. Are you playing with the lives of all the students in this building? No, it isn't like that. This isn't our fault. Sarah's face turned pale, instinctively trying to shift the blame. This was left by Lisa. She bought it. Yes, Lisa bought it. Emma cried along. She just checked out this morning. This thing is hers. The dormitory supervisor scoffed coldly and directly produced the incident report I signed and stamped this morning. Stop slandering here. Lisa processed the checkout at 6 this morning. All materials were reported clearly, and her legitimate heating account under her name had long since been cancelled. Moreover, Lisa had already filed a written report with the safety office before leaving, informing them of your secret possession of this electric heater. The officers on site issued a processing note. The contraband device is seized in accordance with the law. According to campus rules and regulations, during extreme cold warnings, the use of high-risk electrical appliances illegally will result in the deduction of all this semester's moral education points, a fine of $500 for each person, a campus-wide rebuke, and entry into personal files. No! You can't take it away! Chloe screamed, trying to grab the electric heater. If you take it, we'll freeze to death. There is a uniformly open public emergency shelter on the ground floor of the dormitory building, with basic heating. If you want warmth, go to the hall. The law enforcement officers mercilessly cut the power, placed the electric heater into a seal bag, and strode away from the dormitory. The dormitory door slammed shut, taking away the only source of light and heat inside. A remaining trace of warmth was not cleaned by the fierce wind leaking through the crack in the door within seconds. The temperature plummeted again, even more bone-chilling than before. Sarah collapsed to the ground, staring at the issued fine and the emptiness of the floor, her eyes full of despair and resentment. Meanwhile, Emma and Chloe fixed their gaze on her, eyes burning with fierce flames. Not only did I lose the last heating tool and receive a demerit for a public reprimand, but I also had to pay a large fine. Most ironic is that the move I made just before leaving completely blocked all their ways out and prospects for shifting blame. Losing the illegal electric heater, dormitory 302 was completely reduced to an ice cave. The harsh cold of -10-something degrees rushed in through cracks in the walls and windows. The water cups in the room had already frozen into hard ice. These three usually pampered women finally learned what it means to be unable to survive and yet unable to die. But they did not choose to go to the emergency shelter on the ground floor. crowded and with poor conditions. Instead, they hatched a crooked plan. They wanted to use moral coercion and online public opinion to push me out, to force me to return to the dormitory and reopen the heating. At 3 p.m., Sarah posted a lengthy message on the school's official forum, Baidu Tieba, and major social platforms, with a sensational headline. Malicious roommate deliberately cancelled the heating account on a blizzard night, attempting to freeze 3 innocent girls in the same dorm room to death. In the article, Sarah portrays herself, Emma, and Chloe as innocent and pitiable victims, claiming that they are bedridden due to illness, while I harbor resentment over a trivial matter and, amid the sudden blizzard, abruptly shut down the sole heating account and even reported them to the school, taking away their only source of warmth. She also attached photos of them curled up under the blanket, shivering from the cold, as well as the disciplinary notice issued by the school, trying to blame the notice on my malicious reporting. Once the post went up, with eye-catching tags like blizzard and roommates harming each other, it instantly drew enormous attention. Some onlookers who clearly didn't know the truth began to rant abusively in the comments. That's just too vicious, isn't it? Cutting off people's heating in a heavy snowstorm, this is murder. How can someone like this still stay in the school? They must be expelled. Together with her, supporting exposing this vicious Lisa, Emma and Chloe are also in the comments section, frenziedly manipulating the trend, using alternate accounts to flood the posts, even revealing my phone number and social accounts, inciting netizens to perform doxing on me and bombard my family with calls. My phone began to receive junk messages and unfamiliar calls nonstop. However, looking at all this, there wasn't a trace of panic on my face. In the last life, they used this tactic to force me to submit, making me bear countless insults. In this life, I've long been wary of their moral coercion. I calmly opened the computer and logged into the account I had long prepared. They thought online harassment was their weapon, but they didn't know that the real thunderous power, the power to strike, has always been in my hands. 10 minutes later, a post titled "The Real Truth About the 302 Dormitory Heating Incident, Who Really is the Parasite and the Rumor Monger?" surged to the top of the forum with unstoppable momentum, accompanied by an indisputably hard evidence chain. First piece of evidence. Over the past 3 years, all payment receipts for utilities in the dormitory and bank statements clearly show that every deduction came from my personal account, totaling more than $10,000, while the other 3 people's payment records were zero. Second piece of evidence. A high-definition recording and an itemized account. That is what I preserved from my past life, the transfer records showing that Sarah embezzled the dormitory's public funds and used Emma and Chloe's heating fee to buy luxury goods, along with in-store receipts. Third piece of evidence. A highly ironic photo. The down jacket Sarah claimed in her post that she was freezing in is actually the high-end outdoor coat I took from my cabinet last month without saying anything, and the pocket even contains the plastic bag of imported snacks she ate last night. Fourth piece of evidence. The dormitory supervisor's office stamped withdrawal form, proving that I legally and compliantly withdrew, and that I had already filed with the school before the blizzard arrived. At the end of the post, I only wrote one sentence. First, I owe you no one's heating. For the past 3 years I funded 3 ungrateful parasites, not roommates. Second, Sarah embezzled public funds and is suspected of fraud. I have authorized my lawyer to file a formal lawsuit. Third, to everyone who participated in online bullying and leaked my personal privacy, screenshots have been saved. See you in court. The devastatingly powerful rebuttal was released, and the online sentiment instantly turned 180 degrees. Originally, netizens who jumped on the bandwagon to attack me were utterly furious, feeling their kindness had been harshly deceived. Damn! A total reversal. Were these 3 women really traitors? Embezzling heating money to buy luxury goods, and then blaming the man who pays out of pocket when there's no heating? Their skin is thicker than a city wall. She spent her own money to open an account. Why should you all have free access for 3 years? Leaving the dorm and canceling the account is only natural and proper. Support Lisa. Die. These 3 rumor-spreading parasites. For a moment, a surging wave of public opinion retaliated against Sarah and the 2 others with 100-fold force. Their social accounts were instantly overwhelmed by outraged netizens, with the comments filled with condemnations and mockery of their supposed moral corruption. Some alumni even recognized the clothes Sarah was wearing and mocked her as a drama queen who posts about misfortune while wearing stolen clothes. The online storm swept through the entire campus with unstoppable momentum. In dormitory 302, the three who had originally huddled together to fend off the cold found their fragile friendship completely shattered when faced with nationwide condemnation and naked betrayal of interests. In the monitor footage, the dim and cold room only echoed with the howling wind battering the glass. Emma glared at the clear transfer records and store receipts on the phone screen, her eyes red and her whole body trembling violently with anger. Sarah! Emma suddenly ripped off the blanket, rushed to Sarah, grabbed her by the hair, and screamed in accusation. You con artist! What is the transfer record in Lisa's post about? Chloe and I each sent you $800 last month. You said you were using it to pay for heating and stock emergency supplies. And you actually bought luxury scarves with it? Chloe leaped up from the bed as if she'd gone mad, her cold lips turning purple, her eyes full of savagery. No wonder you've been so evasive since the heat went off today. If Lisa hadn't posted it, we'd still be under your spell. Return the money to us. Sarah was knocked to the ground. The cold floor made her teeth chatter, but she still screamed back. What are you two? You use me all the time. If I hadn't brought you into the elite circle, would you be where you are today? I just bought a scarf. Once the blizzard passes, I'll make it right. Pulling back now? It's below freezing. You're going to get us killed. Emma completely lost it, raised her hand, and slapped Sarah hard across the face. The sharp sound of the slap echoed clearly in the bare, cold room. Sarah screamed, blood oozing from the corner of her mouth. She was spoiled from cradle to grave. Never endured this kind of torture. She got up and tangled with Emma. They grabbed each other by the hair, throttled each other, and rolled and fought on the icy floor. Chloe didn't move to intervene. On the contrary, her eyes, hollowed and reddened by cold and hunger, fixed stubbornly on Sarah's private combination lockbox placed on top of the cabinet. In the previous life, that box contained a large stash of high-calorie, premium chocolates, imported jerky, and the warm woolen sweaters she had ransacked from me and others. Chloe, taking advantage of the two of them tangled up, quietly slipped to the cabinet, grabbed the iron clothes rack on the ground, and frantically tried to smash the lock of the password safe. Bang! 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 The sound of metal clashing instantly drew the attention of Sarah and Emma, who were brawling. Stop! Chloe, you bitch! What are you doing? Sarah, ignoring the scratches on her face, screeched and charged to knock Chloe down. Get lost! Chloe, crazed, kicked Sarah in the stomach, sending the already frozen and weak Sarah smashing into the corner of the table. Contorting in pain, the box latches were forced open. Chloe yanked the box open and shoved the wool sweater and high-calorie foods into her arms in one go, even ripping open the packaging on the spot and stuffing chocolates into her mouth. I want some too! Save me some! Emma, seeing this, eyes glowing green, paid no heed to Sarah moaning on the ground, and lunged forward to snatch those few remaining warm clothes and foods away from Chloe. The two tore at the same wool sweater like hungry wolves, with a sharp tearing sound, and the expensive wool sweater was ripped in half from the middle. This one's mine. I paid Sarah. Why should you get it? I was the first to grab it. The indoor temperature had already plummeted below -15 degrees. Three women who had once showcased their deep sisterly bond on social media were now tearing, biting, and cursing viciously in the frozen dormitory over half a piece of chocolate and half a ragged cashmere sweater. Their faces were swollen, a large clump of hair torn out, and bloodstains filled between their fingernails. The extreme cold mercilessly revealed the ugliest, most greedy sides of their humanity. I sat in a comfortable, warm hotel suite, sipping steaming hot tea, quietly watching the high-definition surveillance footage. No heating, no food, no trust, and no way out. The blizzard reached an unprecedented peak deep in the night. The raging winds, like a furious giant beast, let out a piercing roar above the campus, beating the snow and ice against every building. The temperature rose sharply to an extreme not seen in half a century, -25 degrees. The entire city seemed to be completely frozen. The pipes outside the buildings creaked and cracked from the freezing, and windows were covered with thick, knife-edge ice flowers. I stand in a luxurious suite on the 22nd floor of a 5-star hotel outside the campus. The room's independent heating system keeps the temperature a comfortable 26 degrees, and the air is thick with the rich scent of sweet jack and pure cocoa. I'm wearing light, comfortable silk pajamas, holding a cup of freshly ground hot coffee, looking down from the bright floor-to-ceiling window at the campus below, completely buried under white snow. From this vantage point, I can clearly see the topmost, most secluded corner of the dormitory building, the 302 dormitory. There, it is completely dark, with no light at all, like a frozen tomb standing tall in a blizzard. I walk to the desk, turn on the computer, and drag the multi-angle view of the surveillance footage to the maximum. In the surveillance footage, the thermometer inside dormitory 302 shows that the ambient temperature has already dropped to a shocking 20 degrees below zero. This has long surpassed what the human body can endure without any heating measures. After the afternoon's insane internal strife and robbery, the room is a wreck. Broken tables and chairs, shredded clothing, a collapsed wardrobe scattered everywhere, and among these icy ruins, 3 figures curled up like dried trees. Sarah, Emma, and Chloe. They were wrapped haphazardly in every blanket and piece of clothing they could find, even wrapping a torn cashmere sweater around their heads. The 3 of them huddled together like frightened beasts, clinging to each other to draw the last little warmth from one another. Yet in the face of this extreme cold, the human body's temperature is but a drop in the bucket. Their cheeks bore a strange, icy purple, their lips cracked and blistered, glistening with a thin layer of white frost. Frost flowers instantly formed on their eyelashes and hair from the moisture exhaled. Cold. I'm so cold. Sarah's voice was so faint it was almost inaudible, the sound of her teeth chattering violently amplifying the silence in the dead room, making it especially terrifying. In the previous life, at this very moment, they pushed me onto the balcony without heating, and locked the door. I stood in the blizzard, pounding on the glass with all my might, shouting their names, begging them to let me in. And back then they were sitting in the warm room, eating my food, laughing at my despair. At that moment, the cold, suffocating pain and the visceral torment I had felt were now being borne by them, intact and unreduced. Suddenly, there was movement on the surveillance footage. Extreme frostbite and the fear of death finally shattered their last shred of pride and stubbornness. Emma was the first to lose her composure. Her feet had completely lost sensation, and she could only crawl on the cold, bone-chilling floor using her hands. She reached the door and, with fingers as stiff as wooden sticks, frantically pounded on the door that I had locked from the outside. Help! Somebody! Help us! Emma let out a roars, but as soon as the voice left her throat, it was completely swallowed by the howling wind and snow outside the door. The students on this floor had already evacuated to the emergency shelter downstairs before the blizzard arrived. The entire 3rd floor, except for the 3 of them, had no living people at all. Sarah and Chloe finally realized that death was near. They rolled and crawled to the door, desperately banging the door with their bodies, their cries for help echoing in the corridor, but receiving no response. Lisa! Lisa! Please! Sarah dropped to her knees in front of the surveillance camera. She didn't know if I could see, but this was her only hope. She sobbed and hammered at the cold floor with all her might. I was wrong. I really was wrong. I shouldn't embezzle the heating fees. I shouldn't steal your clothes. I shouldn't engage in online violence and defame you. Please turn on the heating, or help us call the police and ambulance. We're freezing to death. Emma pounded her own cheeks frantically while begging into the air. Lisa! Consider our 3 years as roommates. Let us go. We're not human. We're parasites. Just save us this life, and we can do anything. Watching the CCTV showing them crying and kneeling in humiliation, begging for mercy, my eyes betrayed no hint of emotion. A belated apology isn't because they truly understand their errors, but because they are about to die. If the roles were reversed today, they would have no mercy for me whatsoever. I gently swayed the coffee cup in my hand and took a graceful sip. Save them? No. I want them to survive, because dying in a blizzard would be too cheap for them. The true hell is after saving one life, facing the endless abyss I have prepared for them. Just at the very moment when they were on the verge of collapse, and their consciousness began to waver. I picked up my phone and dialed the school's emergency rescue center and 120. Hello, I am a withdrawn student, Lisa. Through public surveillance, I found that 3 students in dorm 302 are refusing to go to the shelter hall despite violations. They are currently severely frostbitten and may be in life-threatening danger. Please rush to rescue them immediately. Half an hour later, the breaching tools smashed open the door to dormitory 302. Rescuers and medical personnel rushed into the room carrying stretchers. On the surveillance footage, Sarah, Emma, and Chloe were lifted onto stretchers like stiff, frozen chunks of meat. Their limbs, severely frostbitten, appeared dead with a blackish-purple hue, their bodies convulsing violently, eyes filled with terror and despair of impending death. The fiercest surge of the blizzard finally passed as they were pushed into the ambulance, braving the cold wind. The corridor outside the hospital ICU ward was filled with the heavy smell of disinfectant. Although the blizzard had gradually ceased, the nightmare for Sarah, Emma, and Chloe had only just begun. After resuscitation, they had been given a second chance at life, but severe frostbite caused varying degrees of tissue necrosis in their hands and feet, promising a long and painful rehabilitation and possibly lifelong disabilities. However, what made them more despairing than the physical pain was the academic crucifixion I had prepared for them. On the day they were transferred from the ICU to an ordinary ward, the official mailbox of the school's academic committee and the mailboxes of all faculty and staff simultaneously received a report letter attached with a huge amount of evidence. The whistleblower is me. The first stroke aimed at Sarah. Sarah has always presented herself in front of outsiders as an academic prodigy and a scientific research genius. She even won this year's top national scholarship and the honor of graduate school recommendation based on a core project paper on new energy materials published last year. But only I know that the core experimental data, model construction, and code writing for that paper were all things I toiled on day and night in my previous life. In that previous life, she took advantage of my illness and slumber, secretly copied the core draft from my computer onto a USB drive, rebranded it, and submitted and published ahead of me. This life, I've been on guard against her for a long time. I not only embedded an immutable encrypted digital watermark into the draft of the paper, but also preserved the complete timestamps from the initial experimental data collection and instrument usage logs to every single code modification. Most damningly, I submitted the surveillance footage of her sneaking to my seat to copy files while I was away in her previous life, as well as the WhatsApp chat record showing her purchasing ghostwriting and publication channel services from an external black market paper broker. After receiving the report, the academic committee held an emergency meeting overnight to compare the 2 sets of data. The conclusion was, Sarah's paper contains serious plagiarism, data fabrication, and academic theft. The next morning, the university academic committee issued a top-level notice. After verification, student Sarah has been found to have committed serious fraud and plagiarism in academic research. It is hereby decided to revoke her published paper results, retract the national scholarship, cancel her graduate recommendation eligibility, and expel her from the university. When this notice was posted on the door of the ward, the just-awakened Sarah looked at the document on her phone. Like being struck by lightning, she let out a desperate scream and spit out a mouthful of blood, fainting on the spot. The second knife, aimed at Emma. Emma had always relied on her perfect resume at school, claiming that she had served as a core intern at a Fortune 500 company, and used this to earn school credits and the title of outstanding student. But in the materials I submitted for the report, there is an official clarification letter issued by the HR of that Fortune 500 company. The clarification letter explicitly states, Emma has never worked at the company, and the official seal and supervisor's signature on her internship certificate are all forged. Moreover, I have attached the complete evidence chain showing her privately seeking out illicit organizations to forge social practice credits and to buy and sell exam answers. The school's academic affairs office acts swiftly. Student Emma forged documents. Academic integrity is bankrupt. Cancel all credits from the past 3 years. Deduct qualification for the thesis defense, and impose on-campus probation and delayed graduation. This means that Emma has not only wasted these years in vain, but will also carry the stain of breach of integrity in her personal record forever, lifelong unable to obtain a degree certificate. As for Chloe, although she had no academic achievements to falsify, She repeatedly used online hacking techniques to secretly tamper with the school's back-end course selection and attendance systems in order to accumulate credits. I packaged and sent to the school's information security center and local police, intact, the IP address she tampered with in the system logs, the attack records, and the transaction receipts for purchasing hacking tools on the dark web, for allegedly illegally intruding into computer information systems. Chloe, still in bed, was directly handcuffed by 2 uniformed police officers before she could even get up. In the hospital ward, the 3 who were once arrogant completely collapsed. Sarah was expelled from school, losing her degree and scholarship, her life completely derailed. Emma faced a delayed graduation, bearing a stain on her integrity, becoming the school's laughingstock. Chloe faced criminal charges, with the protective umbrella for minors long gone. I wore a sharp black trench coat, stepped in high-heeled shoes, and elegantly pushed open the door to the ward. Gazing at the 3 people on the bed, pale as ash and wrapped in bandages, I looked down on them with a disdainful tilt of my lips. "Lisa, you devil. Why do you treat us like this?" Sarah wailed with a broken voice, eyes red with crying. "Devil?" I gently smoothed out the folds on the windbreaker, my tone calm and unruffled. "That's just the karma you folks sowed yourselves. What you stole, deceived, and forcibly took, I've merely retrieved it. The revenge has only just begun. Focus on recovering well. You must not miss the next show." I turned around and walked out of the ward without looking back. The desperate howls in the ward were cut off by a heavy door slamming shut. The academic purge is only the first step. Next comes a thorough draining of legal and financial resources. I stepped out of the hospital building and got into the black business car waiting at the door. In the car, my principal senior attorney David had already sorted out a thick stack of litigation documents and handed them to me with a smile. "Ms. Lisa, as you instructed, all litigation materials have been served to the court, and the court has formally filed the case." Attorney David pushed up his glasses, his tone calm and professional. "Based on the complete and unbroken bank statements, transfer receipts, chat records over the past 3 years, and the invoices for damaged items you provided, we have initiated comprehensive economic recovery and defamation lawsuits." I skimmed through the complaint in my hands. Every word and sentence on it is delivering an economic death sentence to those 3 parasites. First claim, recovery lawsuit. To pursue the past 3 years, for Sarah, Emma, and Chloe privately embezzling, coercing, and demanding all my property, including but not limited to all water, electricity, gas, and heating costs I advanced, brand name clothing they privately took and damaged, expensive skincare, high-end outdoor gear, and the dormitory funds embezzled by Sarah. The total amount involved reaches $87,000. The second claim is for mental distress and defamation damages. Targeting them on the day of the Blizzard raid, they arbitrarily spread rumors online, dox my personal privacy, and incite online abuse, causing serious mental trauma to me and my family. I claim a total of $100,000 in liquidated damages and moral damages, and demand a public apology pinned to the top of nationwide mainstream media and school forum homepages for 30 days. The third claim is for a property preservation application. To prevent them from transferring assets, we filed a property preservation application with the court. That afternoon, the court's pre-litigation asset freezing order was issued promptly, while Sarah was still on her hospital bed with a high fever, crying about being fired. Her phone suddenly began receiving several bank debit and freezing notices. All of her bank cards and third-party payment accounts were instantly blocked, and the balances in the accounts were completely frozen. Not only that, because Sarah embezzled dormitory funds, with an enormous and certain amount involved, she has already committed crimes of embezzlement and fraud, and the police have formally opened a criminal filing investigation against her. Emma and Chloe's personal accounts were not spared either. All their savings were frozen completely. With no money left, they cannot even pay for the hospital's expensive frostbite treatment and subsequent rehabilitation costs. The demand notices rained down on their beds like snowflakes. With no way out, the 3 women could only cry for help from their parents who live far away back home. However, the situation had long since spiraled out of their control. When their parents arrived at school and the hospital, exhausted from the journey, They learned their daughters had not only been expelled and criminally charged for academic fraud and illegal activities, but were also saddled with nearly $100,000 in debts, leaving them completely collapsed to the ground. Sarah's father is a mid-level civil servant who had hoped his daughter's secured graduate admission would bring honor to the family. Now, facing overwhelming public notices and criminal charges, not only has his workplace launched a political investigation, but he has even been suspended from his position. Emma's parents are ordinary working-class salary earners, confronted with tens of thousands in joint compensation and massive medical bills. They had no choice but to list their sole family residence for sale at a steeply reduced price. As for Chloe's parents, enraged at their daughter's impending criminal sentence, they clashed physically with Sarah's parents right outside the courthouse, resulting in a violent and unrelenting brawl. On the day of the court proceedings, the school's courtroom was packed to capacity, attended by the entire school community and multiple media outlets following this sensational dormitory dispute and academic fraud case. In the courtroom, Sarah, Emma, and Chloe, sitting in the defendant's seat, appeared emaciated, with pale faces, wearing tattered hospital gowns, their eyes filled with fear. Faced with Attorney David's rock-solid detailed financial records, audio evidence, and authoritative expert reports, their defense lawyers had no room to maneuver, and could not utter a decent counterargument in court. The judge ruled in court. The defendants Sarah, Emma, and Chloe clearly infringed on the plaintiff Lisa's property, with clear facts and solid evidence. They are ordered to return the property within 10 days and compensate the plaintiff for all economic losses and mental distress totaling $187,000. Defendant Sarah is suspected of fraud and criminal activity and will be referred to judicial authorities for separate review. The three defendants must publicly issue apologies on the entire internet since the three of them were unable to fulfill the compensation obligation within the deadline, and their parents attempted to transfer assets. The court directly placed all three of them and their jointly liable parents on the list of dishonest persons subject to enforcement. They are restricted from high-consumption activities, unable to take high-speed trains or fly, unable to buy houses or cars, and their personal credit is completely ruined. At the moment the verdict was handed down, Sarah collapsed on the floor in court and wetted herself. Emma frantically ripped at her hair. Chloe clutched her head and cried out in pain. After the judgment took effect, not only were Sarah, Emma, and Chloe on the blacklist of dishonest persons subject to enforcement, but their tarnished reputations, academic fraud, and alleged criminal scandals also spread throughout the entire industry. At this time, only 2 months remained before graduation season. I had, during my 4 years of university, solid academic grounding, excellent GPA, and independently completed core research projects, already secured the only high-paying core position offer from Xingya Group, the global top multinational tech giant. At its headquarters before the graduation recruitment fair began, the three who had recovered and crawled out of the mire, in order to survive and repay enormous debts, had no choice but to frantically submit resumes, hoping to find a way to eat in the vast job market. But they had no idea that the job market today is no longer the era where a few forged certificates could get you through. HR departments of major companies implement extremely stringent background checks. Background check. At the 101st campus recruitment interview scene, the HR hall was crowded with people. Emma wore a cheap, creased suit, applied heavy makeup to hide the ugly scars left by frostbite on her face, and carefully walked into the interview room of a well-known medium-sized company. She concealed the fact that she had been delayed in graduating from school and had received a notice of criticism, and on her resume she once again polished that fabricated internship experience. The interviewer smiled as he accepted the resume, then entered Emma's personal information into the computer for a routine background check. Only 3 seconds later, the smile on the interviewer's face completely froze. On the computer screen, the official notice from the school titled about Emma's falsified materials, academic integrity bankruptcy, and stay-at-school punishment was prominently displayed, along with a court-issued dishonest and enforced restraining order. Miss Emma, the interviewer slowly closed the folder, his voice as cold as ice. Your resume says integrity and lawfulness, but our background check system shows that you not only forged internship certificates from a Fortune 500 company, you have also been listed on a debtor blacklist by the court for embezzlement of others' property. Even your diploma has been indefinitely delayed due to disciplinary violations. No, that's not true. It's a misunderstanding. Someone is framing me. Emma waved her hands in a panic, her face pallid. Sorry, our company will never hire anyone with a tainted reputation or bearing criminal and financial risks. The interviewer pressed the call button on the desk without mercy. Security, please remove this lady and notify the HR Alliance to put this applicant on the industry blacklist. Emma was dragged out of the high-rise by 2 security guards, and under the gazes of countless job seekers' scorn and pointing fingers. She looked as pathetic as a street rat. On the other side, Sarah's fate was even more tragic. Because she was under bail pending trial for suspected criminal fraud, no legitimate company dared to hire her. She even tried to do odd jobs at some small restaurants and car washes, but as soon as the shop owners typed her name online, they could see the videos of her embezzling public funds and viciously arguing in the stormy incident back then, along with the reports, and they all shunned her like a plague. Get out! Get out! We don't want liars and deadbeats who spill endless lies here. The restaurant owner waved the broom and drove Sarah to the street. As for Chloe, because she committed the crime of illegally intruding into a computer information system, she formally received the court's criminal judgment before graduation, sentencing her to 8 months in prison, with a 1-year probation. This criminal judgment has completely cut off any possibility of her pursuing any legitimate career for the rest of her life. No matter where she goes, the political vetting and the certificate of no criminal record will forever lock her outside the door. On the day of the graduation ceremony, the sun was shining brightly. I wore a bright red outstanding graduate bachelor gown, standing on the podium in the main hall as the representative of excellent students to give my graduation speech. The applause from the audience was thunderous, and the school leaders personally awarded me the Outstanding Graduate Medal and the Certificate of Highest Honor. In the cold shadows outside the hall, Sarah, Emma, and Chloe wore tattered casual clothes, hiding in the shade of the trees, their eyes filled with malice, jealousy, and boundless remorse. They watched me, the center of attention under the spotlight, and then looked at themselves, their lives piled with debt, with a shattered future, degraded to the lowest filth of society. 2 months after the graduation ceremony, Chinya Group hosted a sensational new product launch in the banquet hall of the city's most luxurious 5-star hotel in the downtown area. As the youngest core R&D member of the project team, I not only participated in the development of this breakthrough technology from start to finish, but I was also entrusted by the group headquarters with the important task of serving as the keynote speaker for this launch. On the day of the launch, the banquet hall was resplendent with lights and bustling with activity. Representatives from major mainstream tech media, well-known investment institutions, and industry giants were all in attendance, and dozens of major online platforms conducted global real-time live broadcasts. Online viewership had already surpassed millions as soon as the launch began. I was dressed in a tailored dark blue suit with a sharp cut, wearing exquisite and elegant makeup, holding a speech pen, and walked calmly and confidently to the center of the stage under the applause and spotlight of the audience. However, just after I finished presenting the core technical parameters and was about to enter the on-site interaction segment, the heavy wooden door at the back of the banquet hall suddenly swung open with a loud slam. A crazed woman with a disheveled appearance and unkempt hair, taking advantage of the security personnel's distraction, rushed into the venue like a feral dog. That was Sarah. She wore a dirty, dilapidated old trench coat, eyes rimmed with ferocious bloodshot veins, face deathly pale as paper, and in her hand she held up a small glass bottle filled with an unknown corrosive liquid. Behind her, Emma and Chloe followed, dazed and full of malice. "Lisa, you cruel, vile bitch. You've ruined everything for us. I'm not backing down from you," Sarah screamed, her voice ghoulishly shrill. She held up a bottle of potion and charged toward me in the center of the stage like a madwoman, intent on splashing the potion onto my face at this global livestream launch, hoping to ruin my life and career forever. The scene was in an instant a mess, and the media's cameras instinctively focused on this sudden upheaval, while the live room's barrage of comments exploded in an instant. "Oh my God! What's going on? How could someone barge into the press conference? What's that woman holding? It seems like a dangerous item. Where are the security guards? Save her quickly." However, In the face of this sudden onslaught, I, standing center stage, didn't budge an inch. My face remained without a trace of panic, and my eyes held only cool indifference and sarcasm that saw through everything. Because 3 days before the press conference began, I had already received a tip from insiders that the desperate Sarah and her 2 companions were planning to stage a fight to the death revenge today. They thought this would be their ultimate stage for a last-ditch counterattack, but they didn't know this was merely the final trap I had set, an airtight plan to catch them at the door. Just as Sarah rushed to within less than 5 meters of the stage, frantically twisting off the cap of the potion bottle and ready to spill it, a split-second moment of crisis. Several tall security personnel who had long since disguised themselves as on-site staff pounced from the side. Pow! One of the security team leaders kicked midair with a gravity-defying high kick, accurately striking Sarah's wrist. The small glass bottle flew from her grasp, smashing onto the nearby open ground, its corrosive liquid sizzling on the cold floor and emitting wisps of white smoke. Before Sarah could react, 2 security personnel swiftly pinned her to the ground with precise takedown moves, pressing her face hard against the cold floor. "Let go of me! Let go of me!" Sarah writhed desperately, screaming like a dying, venomous snake. "Everyone, come see! Lisa, the chief lecturer of Xingya Group, is a cold-blooded killer. She wanted to freeze us to death in the snowstorm. She used scheming tricks to get us expelled from school. She cornered us. She's a demon." Emma and Chloe behind her also shouted and screamed at the doorway, attempting to rally the media's public opinion. However, I merely adjusted my suit jacket a little, calmly walked to the edge of the stage, picked up the microphone, and looked down at Sarah lying on the ground from a superior vantage. "Everyone, please stay calm." I spoke calmly, my voice carried through the banquet hall by top-tier speakers. "Since Miss Sarah wants to settle old scores in front of the entire internet audience, I'll oblige you." I gently pressed the presentation pointer in my hand for the backstage technicians. In the next second, the enormous 8K high-definition screen above the stage instantly switched the image. What appeared on the big screen was none other than the most crucial ironclad evidence from both this life and the previous one. First image. The official chemical analysis report issued by the police, which clearly shows that what Sarah was holding is a highly concentrated, strongly corrosive acid with severe disabling potential. Second video. On the blizzard night, the full HD playback from Dorm 302's surveillance. The large screen plainly shows how Sarah embezzled the dorm's communal heating fees. How she secretly hoarded an illegal high-risk electric heater that was then confiscated. How she went berserk and snatched others' clothing after the heating was cut off. And the ugly whole process of the 3 of them fighting and biting each other in the cold dorm. Third document. The formal judgment issued by the court, the school academic committee's expulsion notice, and the police's filing notice for Sarah on suspicion of criminal fraud. The truth has been revealed to the world. All the lies, mudslinging, and pretending to be pitiful are smashed to pieces at this moment by open, transparent, and uncensored evidence. The reporters went crazy taking pictures of the large screen, and the barrage in the live room showed a ruthless, explosive anger. "Damn! This woman is holding concentrated strong acid. This is attempted murder." The surveillance footage made me sick. She embezzled heating fees to buy bags, blamed others when there was no heat, and in a blizzard night, dogs biting dogs. She's simply a heartless and crazy lunatic. Supports strict punishment. Too terrifying. This kind of social scum should be locked up for life and not come out. Sarah lay on the floor, staring blankly at the ugly images playing on the big screen, while thousands in the audience and millions in the live stream room hurled curses and accusations at her. Her last line of defense finally collapsed. "No, don't let go. Please don't let go." Sarah cried out in despair, her face ashen, convulsing violently. She had intended to ruin my reputation completely through the live stream, but she never expected that she would expose her most ugly, most dirty side to the world audience without reservation. At this moment, the doors of the banquet hall were pushed open again. Several investigators in police uniforms with stern faces and handcuffs strode in. "Sarah, you are suspected of illegally purchasing highly toxic dangerous chemicals, intentional injury, picking quarrels and provoking trouble, and the prior criminal fraud charge. You are hereby arrested in accordance with the law." The cold handcuffs clicked with a sharp sound and were firmly fastened around Sarah's wrists. At the same time, Emma and Chloe, who were attempting to flee, were also intercepted on the spot by security personnel and officers, and, as they were suspected of conspiring to commit intentional injury and picking quarrels, were also handcuffed and taken away. The moment she was led out of the banquet hall, Sarah looked up, her eyes full of pleading and despair as she gazed at me. "Lisa, save me. I don't want to go to jail. Please, for the sake of our past, save me." I stood in the dazzlingly bright center of the stage, watching her being tightly escorted by the police toward the dark passage, my face expressionless, not even a single glimmer of mercy left to spare her. The blaring siren of the police car gradually faded away, disappearing into the bustling and noisy city streets. The banquet hall's order was restored. Amid the audience's shocked and heated applause, I adjusted the hem of my clothes, returned to the center of the stage, and, with the most professional and confident demeanor, completed the entire product launch. That day, not only did Xingya Group's new product become famous overnight, but the story of how I defeated bullying with wisdom and the law in the face of adversity also became a nationwide inspirational tale. A month later, the court issued a final ruling on the cases of Sarah, Emma, and Chloe. Sarah was convicted for multiple offenses: large-scale embezzlement, criminal fraud, illegal possession of hazardous chemicals, and serious intentional injury, sentenced to 12 years in prison, removal of political rights, and continued confiscation of all ill-gotten gains involved in the case. Emma and Chloe, for involvement in multiple illegal activities, forging documents of state authorities, and causing trouble, were respectively sentenced to 3 years and 2.5 years in prison. Their lives are completely locked inside high walls and iron bars. In a long, endless sentence, they will devote their entire youth and future to atone for every evil deed they once committed. Winter is approaching once again, quietly, and this time, I stand in my own private office on the top floor of Xingya Group's headquarters. The room is warmly lit. Sunlight pours through the large floor-to-ceiling windows and falls on the rosewood desk. On the desk lie the latest offer letters for top industry technical experts and the National Award for Outstanding Young Researchers. Outside the window, faint snowflakes begin to fall again. The cold wind rages just as before, and the snow covers the world in white. But this time, there is no longer the anger of betrayal or the despair of persecution from my past life, nor the abundant resentment that filled me when I first reborn. I lift the steaming black coffee at hand and take a slow sip, gazing at the silver-wrapped world outside the window, a faint smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Those parasites and villains who once tried to drag me into the abyss were ultimately swallowed by the evil fruits they themselves sowed, turning into a passing puff of smoke. And I, stepping through the mud and frost of the past, crossing the long night, have finally firmly grasped my own fate and come to this stage of life filled with hope and brightness. The wind and snow will eventually pass, and my glorious new life has only just begun.